Hey, welcome. I'm Jennifer Randall Young, and if you found this show, chances are you've been Googling things at 2 a.m. that you can't say out loud to anyone else. This is The Life with an Alcoholic, a show for the woman who's been holding everything together while somebody she loves is falling apart. We don't talk about the alcoholic here, we talk about you. I'm going to give you real tools, honest conversations, and frameworks that you can actually use, whether you're staying, leaving, or just trying to remember who you were before all of this. Let's get into today's episode. So, Kristen, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited because you've been through it. It was a while ago, but like you kind of said, you are in a different space now, but it's still kind of like impacts you today. And so I'll kind of just let you dive in, tell us about you, your story, and we'll kind of just go from there.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Like I was sharing with you, before the show started, I think this is a really important topic, and it's one that I don't normally talk about. But I think it's really important because it's hard to go through, and I think people need support. And so if my story can help someone else, I think it's worth sharing. So thanks for having
Thank
me.
you.
Yeah, I currently am a mom of a almost 4-year-old boy, so I'm a busy kind of
Oh,
in the toddler life phase of my life.
that's the
Um,
best age.
It's so fun. Like 2.5 to 3, I was like, I don't think I want to be a parent. And then he got
Mm-hmm.
out of that stage and I was like, you're really cool. So it's
Yeah.
a lot. But my story was I've been sober now for 15 years as a result of
Mm-hmm.
what happened in my story. I was dating someone and no hard feelings against him and don't want to like
Mm-hmm.
throw him under the bus at all. But the story it really impacted me. So he was an alcoholic and we didn't realize, I don't think I realized it at the time. I actually didn't realize it until like the kind of tragic part of the story happened. But we were in our 20s. It was very, very, very normal to be just drinking all the time and partying and, every night after work, going to the bars. And so I didn't really notice it. And what was kind of surprising to me is like, I feel like there's sort of two categories from what I've experienced is like there's the alcoholics that are like high functioning and doing really great in their lives. And so people kind of don't think about them as much from the outside. And then there's the people who are like, oh, like he drinks and he's homeless and like has all the like
Mm-hmm.
it's dramatic side. And like I feel like if you're a high functioning alcoholic, often like people are like, oh no, they're not an alcoholic, they just they like to drink. Like there's sort of this, that's what I was dealing with in my dynamic of like, but this person has a job and they're really successful and they like are active and
Mm-hmm.
there's no way that they could be an alcoholic. And
Yeah.
so I didn't realize that I was with this person for many years, and it was a toxic relationship for a lot myriad of other reasons. But I went on a trip with my family to Boston and I came home and he had decided that he was going to just get sober. And I now know that alcohol detox can kill you, the
Yeah.
detox itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I came home to a boyfriend who was hallucinating, who was
Yep.
completely out of his mind. He was on almost day 2 of detox, and he had
Yeah.
been home alone because I was out of town. And I had no idea what was going on. I had
Yeah.
never experienced, like, I was like, what is happening? I thought he took drugs and was like
Yep.
kind of out of his mind. He went to a party, he did something he shouldn't have done. And I did not know what was happening. It took me hours to convince him to drive him to the hospital because he would not let me call 911 because he was just completely mentally not stable. And so I got him in the car. We started driving to the hospital. And while the car was moving, this was like 2 in the morning, he jumped out of the car
Yeah.
because he was having a hallucination. And so I called
Mm-hmm.
911. And when the ambulance got there, they kept yelling at me like, "What is he on? What is he on?" And I'm like, "I actually think for the first time in a long time, like nothing. He's not
Yeah.
on anything."
Yeah.
And so, fast forward, we got him to the hospital. He was like on death's door, knocking at death's door, and ended up being put into a medically induced coma for about a week. And he's still sober to this day. I have not touched alcohol since that moment. We
Yeah.
eventually ended up parting ways on a relationship front. I'm really proud of him getting sober, but that was the most terrifying experience of my life. And getting sober for myself, even though I didn't consider myself an addict, is a whole nother part that we can talk about, but definitely is hard to do
Yeah.
and really shaped, I think, the person that I am today.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that is, a lot of people don't understand that the detox that alcoholics go through does create that altercation. And if you don't know that's happening, like I went through so many different phases when my husband was going through his alcoholism. He was a very high functioning alcoholic, and but also a binge drinker. And so there would be months where he would be totally fine, not drinking, and then there would be weeks at a time where he would just be in a room, closed off from the world,
Yeah.
drinking nonstop.
Yep.
And
I
then
would
he
find
would,
beer bottles in the laundry baskets, like all over
yes,
the place.
yes, 100%. And then all of a sudden he would decide to detox himself. And
Fun.
that's when
Yeah.
and then it would get super scary, right? And
Yep.
then, you would wake me up at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning asking me to check the vomit in the trash can to see if it was blood or not. Like that would be the indicator of, okay, it's time to go to the emergency room. And I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Like I am a super smart, educated
Yes.
woman. What am I doing?
I remember
And
looking at myself in the mirror one night, like crying and being like, my parents raised me better than this. Like, what am I doing with myself? Like, I don't
yes,
know why, how did I get here? Like,
yes. Because we've all asked that question, like, how did I get here? And then we're so far in it that
oh, yeah.
it's so hard to take that first step back to that road to ourselves. And so I think that's my mission. Like that's the whole part of like is like finding people like you who are like, okay, I found a way out. There was one step at a time. For you, it was that massive moment. But for other people, sometimes it's not that massive moment. And then you found a path that probably like your leadership path is like, that may have led you to like, okay, I'm on this, whether or not that moment
Yeah.
threw you
Exactly.
into that path or not. Who knows what the universe, said. But yeah, I mean, everything that happens throws us into a path. And so, yeah, it's fascinating to me is like those little moments where you're standing in the mirror and you're like, how did I get here?
There's like 1,000 micro decisions that happen that lead you to that point. But when you're in that moment, I just remember like, and my mom did not like my relationship at the time, and she wasn't happy with where I was at, and she just knew there was more for me than what I was doing in my life. And I just remember being disappointed for her, like in me, of just like, this is not, I'm not in a safe relationship, I'm not in a good environment, like, and I think sometimes people think like, well, like even the thoughts I was having was like, well, he's not physically violent, and like I'm physically safe, but like for me it was like so much verbal and like emotional abuse of just like manipulation. And for me, like an addict, the way I experienced addiction was like it's very manipulative, it's very self-centered. There He was incredible at gaslighting, and so I started to just like, I became a shell of myself
Yeah.
because of his addiction. Of like, I didn't think people wanted to be my friend, I didn't think I was worthy, I didn't think I was attractive, like, and I just remember like towards the end of it being like, why do I believe all this about myself? Like, I'm like, to your point, like, I'm so smart and like, I'm driven and I'm capable and I grew up in a beautiful, loving home. Like, why am I doing this to myself? And then getting sober for myself was like a whole nother journey, because when I broke up with him, like maybe a year or so later, everybody was like, well, you're broken up with him now, you can start drinking again. Like, everybody was just waiting for me to like get back to like the social norm of like, you didn't have
Yeah.
an addiction, so why can't you participate in this? And I just was like, I never want anything to do with whatever that was. Like,
Yeah.
I laying in a hospital bed trying to convince someone that like aliens are not outside the room because they're hallucinating was like, I'm out. I do not want any part of this anymore.
Yeah. And part of it too is like they don't see it. They
Oh
didn't
no.
witness it. They weren't in it.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for people to understand that because they didn't live it.
Yeah.
They just didn't live it. Like it was really hard for me to tell his family and his friends that I couldn't just leave. I couldn't just stay. Like those it wasn't that easy to just
Yeah. It's
do
not a
anything.
binary decision.
It wasn't that easy. It wasn't just one thing or another. Like
Yeah.
it's
I
not
mean, I
that
think like,
easy.
and like I said, this was, gosh, 15 years ago now, but like even just the other day, I was driving down the street I was picking something up and I had to go down the road that I was driving down when he got out of the car. And I have only driven down that road maybe twice since that happened. But like I can feel it in my body. Like I can feel that experience in my body. And I feel like it just, no matter how much work you do in like therapy and support and community, like it just I think it's like lives rent free in me to like some degree and just has like a permanent residence in terms of like, but now it's like a reminder of like, hey, like I have an amazing husband, a beautiful son, like a great life, like I'm proud of myself for getting out of it. I'm proud of myself for not like succumbing to like all of those thoughts and emotions that I had in that moment. But in that moment, it feels impossible. It feels
Yeah.
like it's so hard to for me, it felt really impossible in the moment.
Yeah, no, it's true. It really does feel impossible, and I have an actual a course that is called the impossible choice because it is an impossible choice because it feels like there's only two choices. People give you those two choices: the stay or leave, and those aren't the two choices. First choice is you really have to figure out who you are again because you've lost yourself in
Totally.
someone else's addiction. And it's because you've taken care of this person and now you've made your world so small because no one understands you at all anymore.
I mean,
Because
and I lost so many friends because they were like
yeah.
over it. They didn't want to deal with me around him. Like it was just, yeah, like I had my my world definitely became very, very small.
Yeah. And I think that's part of it is like you do it without even realizing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I remember
Yeah.
sitting in my apartment, like really lonely one time and being like, where are all my friends? Like,
Yeah.
why am I sitting here by myself? Like, what has happened? But like, people hated being around me. They were like, he's not fun to be around. Like, you're a mess. Like, I don't want to deal with this right now.
I know.
And they don't tell, like, most of them didn't say it, but they just kind of quietly went away. And I was always so busy in that, mess and that situation that I didn't notice it. And then you like you look around one day and you're like, oh, okay, I don't have them anymore.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, my I was the fixer. Like everyone kind
Oh
of
yeah.
has their own role in it, right? Like mine was a fixer. Like I would dive deep into research and that was my role. Like I would be like, okay, I'm like type A. So I'm like, okay, if I can figure out what that symptom is, I can dive super deep into like, all right, we can go to the next doctor appointment and I can be like, this is the symptom. We can fix that symptom and that's going to fix the drinking. Like there was always something like I was like, scan his brain. Like we went to brain scans. Like there's something wrong with his brain. Like it's got to be like CTE or something.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, there's something wrong.
Yeah, there is a reason for this behavior.
Yeah, Like there's a reason for this. Like, and you know, at some point I was just like, there's not. Like he's doing this because he wants to do this and I can't control that part of it. But it's so hard to get to that
Mm-hmm.
until you detach yourself from that
Yeah.
situation. And there's no point of reference for us to figure out when did we actually attach ourselves to it.
Yeah, my mom always used to say like, "Why do you have to date people to fix them? Like, don't get a fixer upper. Like the next boyfriend just can't be a fixer upper." Even with my husband now, she was like, "Oh, I don't feel like you're trying to like fix him or solve anything." Because I just wanted it was like the hero arc, like the hero journey
Uh-huh.
of like, oh, I can like can make him better, whatever. And yeah, it's you can always want like your partner to be improved and like but there's definitely a barrier between or a difference or boundary between wanting to change them and wanting to
Yeah.
like grow together. So I really identify with the fixer. I've been
I
told
know.
that many times by my mom over the years.
Yeah, same. I think we all, everyone, not a lot of us in this situation,
Yeah.
for sure have that quality where we're like we see the potential in that person, and we really hope and want
Yeah.
to help them get to that potential, but we can't make them get there, right? So,
Something really important, like he just wanted to do it. And I think a lot of people in this situation, at least from my personal experience, is we're like they must not want to be an alcohol like nobody wants to be an alcoholic or an addict and like surely like there's like a mental thing like something going on and at the end of the day like they are consciously making the choice to take another drink every single time. And I think that like that was hard for like me to admit because it was like it feels like they're choosing that over you, your family, like all of the things that matter. You're like, certainly you wouldn't choose that over like me or if you have kids, like our kids, but they do. And
yeah.
they do it over and over and over again. And whatever the reason is, like, yeah, maybe it stems from trauma or whatever, but they're choosing to not fix that and not work on that. And then what my ex did, he would do these whole like, well, I'm only going to drink beer. So it was like from like alcoholic to sobriety was like I'm quitting liquor and like I'm quitting wine and then it was like I only drink jugs of sangria every day. But like he made it seem like I'm making these like great headways, but at the end it was just a whole mirage of like
Yeah.
I'm doing the same thing over and over again just in a different way. And it's when you're in the moment, you're like, oh, but they're making improvements. But then you just
Yeah.
realize, no, they're not. They're still drinking like he was drinking like two huge like gallon jugs of sangria a day. And I don't know why I thought that that was okay. But
Well, because
yeah,
we want to believe it. Like we want to believe that
fully.
it's different. Like
Yeah,
it's a different pattern. They're making a change. It's a different pattern than before. So it is a change. And so in our brains, we're like, it's a different pattern. They're making a change for us. That's a change. So that's progress. And so
exactly.
for, in our brains, it makes total sense. And so it's like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And so, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Or like their night, like I have a loved one going through dealing with this right now. And they kind of rationalize like, well, they haven't been like mean or it hasn't been like an issue. Like they're drinking, but it hasn't been an issue. And it's like, yeah, but that's like literally just a matter of time before the next issue or episode happens. Like my ex, a lot of the times was just watching football, drinking beer. It wasn't, he wasn't getting violent or nasty or whatever. And so like, then we just make the excuse of like, but they're fine. Like they're okay. And again, hindsight's 2020. If you're listening
yeah,
to this right now and you're in it, like you can't, I know that you cannot see that. Like I know that it
yeah.
feels like, but when you're now that I'm so far removed, I'm like, that was just ludicrous.
Yeah, right. And the fact that your friend, the fact that they're saying it's not an issue, it's
Yeah.
already an issue.
Yes. Yeah.
Like it is, and we don't want to say it is, but it already is. And it's one of those things where you're already losing yourself just a tiny bit
Hmm.
as you're saying it's not an issue.
Yeah.
That's where, yeah. I One of the things that I tell women in this situation is, like, if you're not sure, is take a week, and without feelings attached to anything, just every day, just write down what you see, good,
Hmm.
bad, like just write down, and then go back and look at it with or without feelings, because sometimes we make things bigger in our head. Like, if we're really really deep into it, we're making things a little bit bigger, but sometimes if
Yeah.
we're like on the edge of it, we're not making things big enough. Like,
Yeah.
we're downplaying it. And so if you're writing down, like, that week, and you're like, he had 6 beers tonight between,
Yeah.
you know, and then that week ends and you're like, holy shit, that's
Oh
not
yeah.
that's not my imagination. That's literally just facts on a piece of paper that I wrote down. And then that's when you're like, okay, now I can see this is an actual
Objectively. Yeah.
objectively. I need to really look at this and be like, okay, this isn't feelings. This is really happening, and I need
Yeah.
to really decide, how am I going to handle this?
Yeah, I mean, it like I mentioned, like I would find like beer bottles in the laundry basket. Like I would find them all, like they were always hidden. Like some liquor, beer, or something was always like
Yep.
empty, hidden somewhere. Like,
Yep.
and I remember like attributing it to like he's messy, but like now I can see like no normal, like normal's not the right word because addicts like they're dealing with their own stuff, but like no non-addict is putting their beer bottles in their laundry basket. Like
No.
they're putting them in the recycling bin. Like,
Yeah.
so it's
Like,
like in that moment though, it's like he's just messy, but like he was hiding them because he didn't want me to see how much he was drinking in a given day, and like then forget the
yeah.
weekends because like that was just a weekday. The weekend was always like I'm going to a friend's house and I'm just going to drink, for into
Yeah.
oblivion.
Yeah.
Um,
Like, it was a game in my house that I would hide the liquor bottles that he would
mm,
have delivered from Total Wine and More, because I refused to buy liquor anymore. Like, that was one of my boundaries, was like, I'm not
mm,
buying your liquor. And so
yep.
he found a way around it, and he would have it delivered. And so I would hide it if I found it first. And the joke was that I was a great hider. Like, he would literally be like, "You're such a good hider. I can't find them." Like, and it was kind of a joke in the house. Like, and he would just keep looking for like booze. And literally after he passed away, I would find it because I forgot where I hid it. Like, I
Mm,
mean, it was that bad. And I was so like, and I would laugh it off. Like, that's how, like, that's not normal. But at the time,
yeah.
it was funny,
Normal.
like, in the house.
Yeah.
Like, we would be
It's a
like, "Yeah,
game.
mom's such a great hider." Like, and I was like, "Yeah, I am. I'm such a good hider, you guys." I was like,
Wow.
"Yeah." Like, you get so into it. And yeah, I mean, it was the things we do and then we look back on, you're right, like, hindsight is just, yeah. And when he passed away, I was like, like, as he got sicker and sicker, I got more frustrated with the system and how everything kind of transpired. And then when he did pass away, I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I can't be the only one who is going through this, and I can't be the only one who, like, has no resources. And, like, Al-Anon is great for some people, but I need to be able to talk to people, and there's
Yeah.
the anonymity there. And I'm like, what good is that if you can't talk to people and get the resources and, like, get the help to, like, step out of this world, like, that we're
I
in,
don't
like.
Yeah, like when my ex got released from the hospital, he was in there for about a week. Like I said, they put him into a medically induced coma because his hallucinations were so severe. Like he was not, like, everything was shutting down, organ failure.
Yep.
And so when they let him out, like, or when he was discharged, I remember he got like medications, I don't know, for like anxiety and
Yeah.
whatever concoction they gave him. And then they gave us like a pamphlet, and that was it. Like, and I've worked in healthcare for 20 years. I could do a whole TED talk on the brokenness of our our
Yeah.
system around
I can
supporting
only
people.
imagine.
I could talk about that for years. We don't have enough recording time on your podcast platform probably for that. But like I I was so I mean, in the moment, you're just like, okay, is getting out of the hospital. What do I need to do? How like
Yeah.
you're so in the moment. But now I'm just thinking about it now. Like he got no help. He had no follow up appointments. It was like call your PCP, right? Like you think an alcoholic has like a PCP that he's like regularly seeing, like get real. He never went to AA, as far as I know. He never went to like any meetings or resources or rehab or anything. And what I think was the hardest is like we were together, I think, for a year or 2 years after he got sober, but like that time is full of terrifying fear because you are petrified of a relapse, especially after you've experienced something like I experienced in hospitalizations and borderline. Like they said, had he not come home that night and found him, he would have died in that condo. And so it was so scary to like the fear that you're living in of like, is today going to be the day? And like you're changing your entire life, right? Because an alcoholic, where do they spend all their time? At the bar, like oh, your whole social, like everything changes in an instant. And we just had no resources, no support whatsoever. And he was not willing to admit still that he was an alcoholic. I wasn't willing to admit that I was with an alcoholic. And so it was just like, I think we honestly just like sat inside and got really depressed for like the next
Yeah.
year because there was nothing, I did not know what to do. I was like totally frozen until I realized I needed to get out of the relationship because everything was like, well, once I get sober, then, but then like all those things, all the promises of like what sobriety was going to bring us didn't ever happen. And so I was like, I got to get out of this. But yeah, there's just no support. I felt at the time, at least, there was no support at all.
No, there isn't. And I think that was the problem. Like I was really frustrated. I was frustrated with the lack of community, lack of support. I was frustrated with the lack of resources because if he had had a medical issue, I would have had access to more care.
Absolutely.
Like, but there wasn't. Like, he at some point would be so drunk that he would be in a chair, literally a chair for 3 days that I couldn't move. Like, that's not, and that is not a pretty picture for anyone, but literally could not move for 3 days. And I would have to call 911 to come move him. And I'd be like, can you take him to the ER? Like, can you, like, because he'd been to the ER to like medically detox like a number of times. And we're smart people. Like he was a C-level employee at Microsoft and iHeartMedia, like smart man.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, he came to long enough that he told us that he didn't want to come and his vitals are just good enough that we can't take him. And
Yep.
and I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do with him? And they're like, well, we can move him from the chair to the couch. And I'm like, I guess that's great then.
Sure.
I guess move him from the chair to the couch. I'm like, so
And
I'm
then
like,
people probably want, like, a lot of those people, I know paramedics, many of them have a heart for people, but like they don't have any resources. Like if they bring him to the hospital's not going to do anything. And so like
no,
there's this whole broken cycle of
yes,
like I remember when, when the ambulance came to get my ex and they're like, well, what is he on? What is he on? Like the sentiment of like an alcoholic coming into the ER, the vibe was definitely like, oh,
yep,
like this again, like an addict. And like, and they just figured I was like an enabler. And I was so confused. I had no idea what's going
yes,
on. I'd never experienced this in my life. And I was just like, I don't know. Like, but the way they looked at me made me feel so small of like, oh, she's just like with some addict that's like
Yep.
running around crazy on the streets. You know what I mean? And I was like, I don't know what's like, I need your
Yeah.
help, please support me.
Yeah. No, it's awful. And that's where when I was just like, okay, this has to stop. Like
Yeah.
this is why this is why we don't come forward and we don't talk about it. Because I felt so small and so belittled. And the first time that he went to not the first time, one of the times that he went to the ER, it was during COVID. I dropped him off because we couldn't stay, right? And I was called back to come pick him up. And the doctor came out to like get me or whatever and said 0 words to me and literally just walked up to me and said, "How long has your husband been a drunk?"
Mm,
And I
nice language.
literally just looked at him and I went, "What?"
Yeah.
And
Like your brain is like, that couldn't have possibly, but I must have heard them wrong. Like that's what your brain
yeah.
is doing in that moment.
And
Of like,
I
wait,
was just like,
what happened just then?
"What? What?"
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Oh my God." Like that was when I was like shocked, like I was thrown into this and I was just like, "Oh my God, this is actually happening." Like
Yeah.
this is happening. And yeah, and so that's when I was like, okay, this like I have to like I can't not do something anymore. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, this is where we are. And I really hope that, you know, at some point we reach enough people that we start to we make a difference, or at least reach a couple people who are like, okay, I can make those baby steps. I can come back. I can start to set a few boundaries, and you know, I can get out, or I can stay with boundaries, or I can, you know, start to change my life and pull back or whatever. But yeah, I mean,
It's just for I like for anybody listening that's like in it, like it's just yeah, it's like what can you take that like one step that would be like maybe it's not the step towards leaving them or like that even is so big, but it's like can you take a night and go out by yourself with a girlfriend or you know like with somebody and just like take care of yourself because I think being with an addict, at least for me, like you just, I totally lost my sense of self because everything was about him. It's
yep,
such a self-centered relationship of like everything was about him. It was like if his mood was off or he was a bad drunk that day, like it changed the house, it changed how everything operated, it changed my fear level, it changed if I was tiptoeing around things or like and so it's just like you have to find a way to take care of yourself for the day versus just everything always being about them. And they love it to be about them. I don't know what it is about that, like, but
yep.
it just they would it like it not being about them is when I feel like they get triggered and it you know they want the focus or whatever to be back on them. And so yeah, make it about you. Just pick one thing you can do for yourself to make it about you for the day.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I appreciate you a lot for sharing your
Yeah,
story.
I
You want to
appreciate
tell us
you
about?
too.
Well, thank you. Do you want to tell us about you, like what you do now, and like how
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
help our
So
audience? And yeah, because I love what
yeah,
you're doing right now.
thank you. Yeah, so that experience definitely shaped a lot of me. I think the biggest like lasting impact is I stayed sober. I've been sober for 15 years now. Now I have to like look at the date on my phone because I forget. I'm like, how long has it been?
Yeah,
But I will never
that's
drink
a great
again.
thing
And
though.
yeah, I will never drink again in my life. And it's been just great for my life. But I worked in healthcare corporate leadership for 20 years, many times trying to build programs for people to have support that don't exist in the current structure. And my husband and I have well, he owns a technology company in the education space, and I'm the COO of that company, and I sort of help there. But in January of this year, I quit corporate for the first time in my entire life. I was like, went out on my own and wrote my book called The Mama Bear Leader, which is focused on human centered leadership and how it can reimagine the way that we work. Because I believe that we spend most of our awake hours during the week at work, and many of us are just unhappy and unfulfilled. And I don't know, my Instagram's full of like memes about people hating their jobs. And I think a lot of that stems from leadership and just accountability there. And so I work with mostly women one-on-one, and then companies will hire me and bring me in to help build out leadership development programs for their organization so that they can pour into their leaders in a strategic way and grow them. And the data is incredible. The more, a trained leader has better employee engagement, they generate higher profits, they hit goals
Yeah.
more. So there's a lot of value for companies to invest in that. So yeah, my book came out June 2nd. It hit Amazon bestseller, which was amazing. I'm so proud. Thanks, Mom, for
Wow.
buying 10 copies, but it was really great. And I'm really proud of the work. Being a mom now to my son, it's just totally changed my brain chemistry. And, you start to think, I'll be 40 this year. You kind of start to think of like, okay, what's the impact that I want to leave
Yeah.
in my life? And I just want people to be happier at work. And I believe that it's possible. And any work that I can do to help people get there makes me happy. But then when I learned about your podcast, I thought, like, I also have a story to share on this topic too. And if it can help one person, then it's not all, for nothing. And I'm really proud if this ends up in the hands of my ex. Like, I'm really proud of him for being sober 15 years later. Like, he was in
Yeah.
the thick of it. And it was incredibly difficult and challenging. And I'm really proud of him for being where he is today. And I'm proud for myself of getting out of it and getting to this point where like I have a book and I have a beautiful family and I get to work with companies to make people's lives better through work.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's amazing. I really appreciate you coming on today. Like, this has been amazing. It's a great story. And yeah, and I think a lot of people will take some amazing nuggets from it, and everyone should go buy your book because
Thank
everyone
you.
should be a leader. We all need more
Yeah.
leaders.
Whether you have a title or not, like I cover 7 principles. They will just help you be a better human. So, yeah, my website's the Mama Leader Bear, the Mama. Sorry, this is like my
Sorry.
brain after saying it for the mamabearleader.com. That's my
It's
brain
your mom
after
brain.
being up all night with my son. But yeah, it's on Amazon, the Mama Bear Leader, and I'm really proud of it. It's a quick, easy read. It's like 100 pages, no fluff, all tactics.
I love it. I love it. We'll link it in the show notes too, so it'll be in there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jennifer.
Thank
This
you.
was a great conversation. I appreciate you creating this space. It's really, there's not many of them out there for people. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you creating that space.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was great to have you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
That's a wrap on today's episode, and I hope something in there gave you a little more clarity or at least reminded you that you are not alone in this. If you're ready to go deeper, I want you to head over to thelifewith.com. That's where you'll find the app and everything you need to start reclaiming your life on your own timeline. And if this show has helped you, share it with somebody who needs it, because the woman who needs this most probably doesn't even know this show exists yet. I'll see you next Tuesday. Take care of yourself first.